Hey, what's good, everybody? Welcome to the Thought Space with me, Tabu Mapuana. Thank you so much for being part of us, and I'm so excited that we have another subject matters that we need to discuss. And thank you so much for for your inboxes. Thank you so much for your comments. People that know me personally. For the calls. I got a very encouraging conversation. I had a very encouraging conversation briefly from one of my favorite human beings, and then I was attending a show, an event, and they called me to the side and they said, don't stop what you're doing. You know, it will grow and then it is impactful. A friend of mine was like, I was watching one of the episodes. I really enjoyed it. So it is encouraging. I appreciate it, and then I believe that the kind of subject matters that we speak about on this particular program is something that is of your benefit, and I believe that we are building a community where we will grow together and we will do great things together. I want to talk about um, parenting. In my intro, um, when I was announcing that we will be doing this kind of program, I did mention that for about 6 years I've been doing this work of facilitation. So one of the things that I used to do was to train and educate parents on how to build better relationships with their children, especially pre-adolescent and adolescent stage, and as well as teenagers. And I can see that there is a need for people to be aware of what they need to do in order to solidify their influence when it comes to their children. And then I always ask questions when I speak to parents when I was doing these programs, and I said, how many times have you told your child that you don't listen? And then probably in all the trainings that I have done, almost the whole house or the whole room will raise their hand and say, yeah, my child does not listen, or I have said something like that my child doesn't have an ear. They don't listen to me. And I would always challenge that and say, your child is always listening to someone. Your child is always listening to something. It's just that it so happens that the child is not listening to you. So that's what the program and the training was all about, to train parents to understand what makes your child not to listen to you and what you can do to um, to ensure that your child listens to you, and then your voice becomes an influential voice in your child's life. Especially, this is a very comprehensive kind of a training, and then it's not going to be um, we can't cover everything in 30 minutes. But what we are going to do is that I think we're going to do it a series, um, and um, and then every Tuesday, then we'll upload videos that talks about parenting and give you tricks on how to better engage with your child and how to better creatively influence your child without sometimes using excessive force to ensure that your child listens to you. There's one thing that I've noticed, especially in my generation of parents. There's a lot of my peers who are parents. Maybe some of them may not be parents as yet. We struggle with accepting the fact that we are the adults now. There's a lot of um, people or adults who are of my age group, born in the mid 1980s, the late 1980s, the early 1990s. Probably we can even include the mid 1990s. There is a serious war of accepting that you are the adult now. When you pass the street and then young kids, the 2000s, they see you, they should be seeing an adult, and they should be seeing a person that is responsible, and then they should be seeing an adult that's supposed to hold these uh, 2000 kids accountable. But we find that, you know, my generation of adults, some of them, if not most, they find themselves in clubs with these kids, these 2000 kids, because there's a battle of reconciling with the truth that you are the adult now. We need adults that are sober in their minds to make decisions and to be able to lead their communities. I was talking to a friend of mine the other day. I'm like, half of my peers, half of my, you know, age group, they don't know how to negotiate for Lobola. They don't know the procedures. You may not be the head negotiator, but you must be in the room. You must know what's happening. You know the communication processes and everything. You must know all those things. Most of my peers, they don't know that because they're stuck. They're stuck in this. I'm still a young person. I still want to have fun. I still want to have this thing. I'm still talking about parenting. And then that translates with the lack of knowledge, no wisdom on how to interact with our children. And as a result, children, our children are slowly, you know, um, slippering away, if I were to put it away, from our hands, because there is a lack of understanding and a lack of appreciation of the fact that I am the adult now. I am the parent. I am the enforcer of rules and regulations of my household. I am the one whose laws must be upheld. Most of my peers are struggling to follow their own laws. You're having parents who still come back home at late at night. How do you tell your child that you shouldn't come back late, you shouldn't be playing around with boys and girls, and you shouldn't be playing around with alcohol, yet they see the parents doing the very same thing? So this particular program we go to, this is just the foundational talk, if I have to put it this way, that you have to understand that you are the adult now. Because even if I were to share these principles on how to build a better relationship with your child and how to ensure that your voice is a influential voice to your child, as long as you have not yet reconciled and accepted the fact that you are the parent, you are the adult now, and you are not an adult by the fact that you gave birth to the child, you have to act like you are the adult. You have to make decisions like you are the adult. You have to lead like you are an adult. You must teach the child like you are an adult. You must not be wavering and hoping for the best. So we understand that I am the adult. Because I am the adult, I must behave like the adults. I cannot allow myself to behave like those kids that I'm supposed to be leading, those kids that I'm supposed to be teaching. We get that. We understand that. We're on the same page. Good. When it comes to parenting, and this is one of the things that I tell parents most of the time when I speak with parents, and I say, you are a parent until the day you die. There is no tea break. There is no time out. The responsibility of being a parent um, will go with you until the day you leave this earth. And I really wish and I really pray that we go back to the era where I grew up, where parenting really, it took a village to raise a child, where you don't have to have a child of your own to be a parent, but you must have the sense of responsibility when you see a child that is going astray, and then you say, I cannot allow this to happen on my watch. But then for you to have that kind of mindset, you must have a sense of responsibility as an adult to want to fix something that is broken or prevent something that is about to break. I was talking about fatherhood the previous episode. I was like, the reason why we see a lot of decaying in our society, we see a lot of our children falling into drugs, teenage pregnancy. There's just lawlessness when it comes to our children, is because fathers have dropped the ball. And then when I observe in my surroundings, when I go to communities, I don't see any improvement. So I want to talk to my fellow peers, my age group, my my fellow parents. Said nothing will ever change until you understand that the responsibility of raising these children is ours. And nobody is gonna come and raise our children but ourselves. And things have changed. You cannot raise your child the way you were raised. The kind of influences that you heard when you were growing up, they are now 10 times more dangerous to the children that we are raising now. So you cannot use the same method. One of the things that I always tell parents, and then I say, you are the most important teacher to your child. What that means is there is no teacher that is more important than you. There are so many teachers right now. And by teacher, I don't mean a person who stands in front of your child, and tell your child on what to do and so forth. There's so many influences on a daily basis that are influencing your child. And then because in most cases, these influences are happening so rapidly, every single day, your child is exposed to the same kind of influence every single day. They are prone to do what they're influenced to do. And this is where parents lose their grip. Because usually parents, they tell their parents one message once and then they're done. And then they expect the child to get it. And then most parents will tell the child, I'm not going to repeat myself. I'm not crazy. I'm going to tell you one thing and I'm going to be done. If you're not going to listen to it, then they find some method of instilling discipline or punishing the child. But you find that even the method that they're trying to use to discipline the child, it's not the right method for that child. because children are not the same. So you cannot use the same methodology in raising the child. You have to identify, you have to know the person that you're dealing with so that you know how to deal with it, with that person. And by that person, I mean the child. So you are the most important teacher to your child. And when we say you are the most important teacher, that also means that the most important education must come from the most important teacher. I always tell parents and I say, we are living in an era, we are living in an age where you can't really tell your child lies. You know, our children have smartphones, they have access to the internet, so literally information is on their fingertips. Information that can build or destroy them is on their fingertips. So we cannot be parents like our parents who used to tell us that babies come from airplanes. We cannot be parents that tell our children that abort the child, because so let me tell you what happens. Let me show you what makes the breaking of the relationship between um, the parent and the child. So what will happen is that I know you probably have had of this question. If you have not yet, that question is coming. A child will come to you. The child is probably 4 years, 5 years, maybe 6 years, and then they ask you, "Where do babies come from, Daddy?" I'm gonna give you some time and allow you to answer the question. Daddy, can I ask you something? And I said, "Yes, baby." And I said, "Where do babies come from?" And then immediately you concoct a, a fairy tale of a truth about you. You came with an aeroplane, and then yeah, and then they put you on the door, and then that's how you came. And then the child has a friend that has a smartphone, has access to the internet, and then just Google, where do babies come from? And then Google tells your child the truth. And then the question is, next time when your child comes to you with a question, will they still see you as a reliable source of information? Or will they continue now, go back to the source of information that was truthful to them? Now the gap, a bridge has been created. And unfortunately, this bridge has thorns now. You cannot go to each other. The child would rather be quiet than to come to you when they need information. So the question is like, how do you tell a child where the baby comes from? Right? So it's like, you know, I have three babies. The eldest one is 5 years old. One of the things that we do in the house is we teach the child about, her body, head, shoulders, knees, and toes. As young as she can comprehend language and she can understand what a head is, She can understand what shoulders are. She can understand what knees are and toes are. We start as early as that. And then that's one of the most fundamental things, that do you know the developmental stages of your child? And then the best way to do that is to spend time with your kids. You cannot guess. You have to see it. You have to spend time with, you have to see the change in how they reason. You know, I like the way you are reasoning now as a 5-year old. You know, I remember how you used to speak when you were 3. I see fundamental change, and I see even the nuances in how you speak, in how you reason. You only see that when you spend time with your children. And this has to be deliberate. It has to be intentional. You can't spend time with your child by chance. You have to allocate time, because many of us are busy. But that cannot be a reason or an excuse not to spend time, because when you spend time with your child, you are able to see the changes in your child. You know, I spend a lot of time with my kids. You know, I play with them, but while I play with them, I pay attention to their language. I pay attention to how they treat each other as siblings. I pay attention to, their goals and their dreams, the things that they love, the things that they want to do. I am constantly aware of what my children are doing, so that I know what kind of information to feed them, and what kind of information not to feed them, or what kind of information I need to correct, so that they trust me as the most reliable source of information in their lives. They should not they should not see a need to go elsewhere while daddy and mommy are around. So you have to spend time with them, right? And then when you spend time with them, then you see their level of development. Then you are able to see, this is the kind of information that I can introduce. You don't just come out of nowhere and just throw a bucket of information, and you find that this information is just too much for them. That's what a lot of parents do. They avoid, for instance, talking about um, sexual health. They wait for the child to, if it's a girl, they wait for the child to having their first period, and then when a child has their first period, then that's when they tell them, you must not play with boys. And then the child is like, what do you mean I must not play with boys? It's like, yeah, if you play with boys, you're gonna fall pregnant. Fall pregnant by playing with boys. If now find now you have to find creative ways, so that the child understand what you mean by playing with boys, because there is no track record of you ever talking to your child about these things. So you start with head, shoulders, knees, and toes. As you are watching their development, head, shoulders, chest, knees, and toes. As their chest is developing, we're talking about a girl now. Head, shoulders, breast, vagina, knees, and toes. You can find creative ways on what you call a vagina. It's okay. You're a parent, as long as they know what it is. And then you add on it as they grow, and then you are able to assess their level of comprehension. You now say head, and then you sit down and you explain the function of the head. This is the head. This is where the head houses the eyes, the nose, the mouth, and the ears. Of the ears, the function of the ears is so that you hear. It's also to balance, so that you don't fall. The eyes are there to see, but also now you have a responsibility to choose what to see and choose what not to see. You don't just see everything. You don't just look at everything because you have eyes to see. Now you have a choice. There are certain things that you should not be looking at. You have a choice not to look at them. You see, you are growing with the child. As you have a mouth is there to speak. Sometimes you use it to breathe, but fundamentally is to speak and to eat. The fact that you can eat with this mouth, it does not mean that you must eat everything with this mouth. There are things that you are supposed to eat, and there are things that you should not eat. The fact that you have a mouth to eat does not mean that you must eat everything. You can't explain that to a 3-year-old, but you can explain that to an 8, 9, 10-year-old. But you are growing with this thing, right? Now the child has an understanding that there's constant information that I'm getting from my parent. Vagina or penis, you know? But the child's like, right now we tell our young child, our daughter, that nobody, even the boy, nobody must touch your vagina. No one must ever touch your penis. If anybody comes to touch your vagina or your penis, you come and tell mommy and daddy. Okay? She's 5. She doesn't understand the concept of molestation and rape. So I'm not going to bombard her with this information. She's too young to understand that. But as she grows, then that's when you add on the information so that the child does not, excuse me, so that the child does not feel the need to go elsewhere to find information. You are your child's most important teacher. Because you are your child's most important teacher, the most important teaching must come from you as a parent. On the next episode, we're talking about don't push responsibility of teaching your child most important information to someone else because we are living in a sick world. You have a responsibility because you are the adult now to teach your child. Take the responsibility and be the most important teacher to your child so that your child does not have the need, does not feel like they don't have anyone around them to speak to, but they will have the trust and the assurance and the confidence that you are the parent that is there to help them whenever they need you. I need you to go through this video over and over and over again so that this thing is embedded in us because we have a responsibility of raising these young ones so that they become responsible in society, so that they are not easily influenced by outside sources of information, but they know that there is a hub of trustworthy, reliable information and teachings in their parents, which is you, the adult. Thank you so much for being with us. And I'll see you next time. Peace.